The topic today is reading and math matter. Then there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions on anything else that's going on district-wide when Mr. Decker takes the stage here in just a few minutes. But before we begin, I'd like to go over some things with you. I have a short video that I'd like for you to watch. It kind of highlights why it's important that we are doing some of the things that we're doing in education today.
Mr. Best, if you're still willing to contact the office, please, Mr. Best.
That gives you an idea of how the world has changed over the last even 50 years. For those of you that didn't know what that big thing was that just had 576 songs in it, that was a jukebox. And whenever I was a teenager, that's how we listened to our music. You put quarters in them and they played a song. So that was one of the big changes that has happened over the years. Technical difficulties. I do apologize. Okay. Part of the changes also that has happened over the years is the level of accountability has gone up for our students and for our schools. So one of the things that we want to talk about is the Missouri Assessment Program, how it came about, some of the changes that are happening, and some of the changes that have happened within the last 18 years since math has been around, and then some of the changes that are going to happen in the next couple of years for you and your students. The Missouri Assessment Program was one of the educational reform mandates from the Outstanding Schools Act in 1993. Like I said, that was 18 years ago. So math has been around for a while. There have been changes in it. And also part of the Outstanding Schools Act was whenever the state finally said, these are the things that we deem important for all of our Missouri students to know and to be able to do. So that's why math came around, is so that there was accountability on the student level, but also on the district level for making sure that we're teaching what the state has deemed necessary for our students to know and to be able to master. We now have 2 levels of accountability. On the federal level, we have annual and yearly progress, which that's through No Child Left Behind. And we've had that, and I'm sure you've heard where schools are in school improvement or and different levels of school improvement with that. That, because it's been so controversial, the main point of No Child Left Behind was that all students in the United States would be proficient by the year 2014. Well, what has happened is each state got to set their levels of proficiency and also got to choose what they wanted, they believed to be what the students needed to know. So there was no consistency from state to state. So when No Child Left Behind came in and was talking, each state was then designated whether or not their schools were proficient or lacking. Then what we found was with Missouri, we had set our standards at such a high place that a lot of our schools were not meeting the standard of AYP. But then there were states in our neighboring states who were, because their standards were set so much higher. So that was kind of a political game that a lot of the states were playing, was trying to make sure that their standards were low enough that all of their students could be proficient, and Missouri opted to keep their standards very, very high, and so that's what we're trying to work for, is that level of proficiency. And because of the inequity in standards from state to state, then No Child Left Behind was kind of not necessarily it wasn't equal from state to state. We also in Missouri have our level of accountability. That's the annual performance report. And that is not only addressing the student achievement standards, but it also addresses things like graduation rate, attendance rate, students, especially at the high school level, there's a lot of accountability on the Missouri, and the annual performance report. Career ed courses, completion of career ed, and then graduate follow-up studies are also part of all of that. So there's a lot of accountability with both of those standards. One of the things I want to talk about is the Missouri Assessment Program. That is the testing that we provide to all of our students, that we test all of our students. We have all of our students in grades 3 through 8 must be tested in communication arts and mathematics. And then we have benchmarking for science at grades 5 and 8. Those are the required tests from grades 3 through 8. And at the high school level, we have end-of-course exams. We switched from subject area tests to end-of-course exams, but they've still chosen Algebra 1, which would be the mathematics, and then English 2, American Government, and Biology are the ones that all students in the state must take. Then they also have voluntary end-of-course exams, and we do take all of those. And our students on several of these do score very well. Algebra 2, Geometry, English 1, and then American History. Those are all voluntary. We don't have to give them, but as a district we have chosen to administer them so that we can see if there's some type of continuity between what we're teaching and what's being tested. Over the next couple of years, you will be seeing some major changes in math. We're moving away from the grade level expectations to the Common Core. Missouri was one of 48 states that joined the consortium to adopt the Common Core standards. What we're finding is the Common Core is different than what we're teaching now to our students. So we're in the process of making that transition, because in 3 years, all of our students will be tested on the Common Core, which is a different set of standards again. So what we're trying to do is make that transition so that our students can still be successful on math, but yet whenever they start taking the Common Core assessments, which are required within 3 years, then they'll be ready for that. The Common Core standards, they tout as being more rigorous than what our Missouri standards are right now. So for a lot of states, it's going to be a bigger transition. than it is in Missouri, because Missouri standards are already up there. So the transition for us to Common Core, I think, is going to be a little bit better than a lot of our neighboring states. Other changes that are going on, MSEP 5, that's Missouri School Improvement Program, and that is the way that our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education kind of grades us as a district. What they're doing is they're moving away from looking at the number of square feet in your building, how many teachers you provide, their level of certification, and they're actually moving from those resource standards, which are important, because we want to make sure that we're providing a quality program to our students, but looking more at the student achievement piece. And part of that is the growth pilot, and what they're looking at is where a student starts out at the beginning of the year, and then doing intermittent testing throughout the year to see how much growth they have made. So that's going to be another measure to show that this is how we know our students are getting what they need to know. So, do I have any questions so far on any of this?
Do you have any more details on like the growth pilot as far as the tests that are going to be given? Is it going to be over all subject matter? Is it just going to be over the math and language arts?
That's with the Common Core. It's basically mathematics and English language arts. It was communication arts. Now they're calling it English language arts. They really have not developed standards for science, social studies, or any of the other areas. Those are in the works. But the two primary areas that they're going to concentrate on first are the English language arts and the mathematics. And part of the testing, the MAP test had a performance part to it. Some of you probably remember having this huge writing component that you had to do with the MAP. And with the budget cuts that have happened over the last couple of years, they've kind of cut those out. Well, with the Common Core, they're bringing that back. So part of it will be, and they're even looking at students maybe doing group work and then sending all of that information in. So a lot of the new testing will be done on the computer, so electronically. So just like we do now with our end of course exams online, because you can get that instant, almost instant information back to the school districts on how well the students have scored. But there will also be another component where they're either doing the work on the computer and submitting their work electronically, or we're scanning the work and sending it to.
The growth pilot is throughout the year, not just one pilot.
Yes.
And
we're actually part of the growth pilot project, where our students will be eventually taking the 3. And what they're doing now is they're just trying to decide that level of accountability, whether or not they're going to use, and I know this is all educational ease, and I apologize, but value added, whether or not how they're going to decide how a student makes growth is what they're trying to decide now. What's the most appropriate way to show that my students are actually getting what they need? So, yes.
What grade are they going to start doing the Common Core standard testing in?
Common Core will still cover grades 3 through 8, mathematics and English language arts. Then there will be an additional, and we'll keep the EOCs, end of course exams that we currently have that we're required to take. The voluntary will still be available, but in addition to that, for our high school students, they will be taking an end of high school exam at the end of their 11th grade year. And it will be a compilation of mathematics, of everything mathematics at the high school level, and also English language arts. So that won't be in effect for another 3 years.
The end of high school test, is that a survey, or do they have to pass it to graduate, or how will that work?
In Missouri, it has not been, right now it's up to the local school district as to what level of accountability for the students are on that 11th grade test. Some of the other states do require students showing proficiency on an end of high school course or test. So that's why they were looking at that being at the 11th grade level. So if a student doesn't pass it in those states, because now with the Common Core, all of the students in the United States, for the most part, will be tested with the same test. So it kind of leveled the playing field all the way across the nation. So for those states that require that, the students have 11th grade, and if they don't pass it, they can take the test again in the 12th grade. Is why they've moved that to the 11th grade level.
So are we allowed, like, with EOCs, we can delay some students from taking it? Are we allowed to do that with that kind of?
I would say probably not, since they do have an opportunity to take it again. That would also give us an opportunity again for our students who are struggling in certain areas to be able to really hone in on those areas for their senior year. Yeah, just so that we can do something just a little differently. Any other questions? Good questions.
Well, all right, you should think the required EOC and the voluntary ones. You start ramping all the voluntary ones, so it shows like a transition from the class.
Right.
Well, like with American history, with like history being just like a broad subject, what if parts of history like we didn't learn, but they're on the EOC?
That's why with the American history, with it being voluntary, there's not that level of accountability for the district or also for the students. And that's one of the things that we're looking at is where do we need to adjust the curriculum? Because in my opinion, it's not fair for you to take an American history test when you haven't been exposed to the curriculum. So, I mean, and that's something that we're looking at because, to be honest with you, of the voluntary, that's our lowest score. That's our lowest level of proficiency. So that's one of the things we need to look at is why are our students not performing, like they are on Algebra 2 or geometry. So what is it that we need to do to adjust the curriculum for you?
I just remember discussing that one time at the beginning of the year. And like, there's even like, I think they said there were sometimes where even like the teachers didn't even know what they were talking about in the EOC.
And that's right. And part of that, is training our teachers, making sure that they do understand. And that's, making that transition for the Common Core. My math and my communication arts teachers really need to have a really good understanding of what those standards are so that they can make sure that they're teaching them to the level that is required. With the Common Core, there's a lot more, they say it's more rigorous, which means that there's a lot more higher level critical thinking skills that have to go on than just basic recall on those standards. So trying to get our students up to those levels and making sure that they're where they need to be.
Do you know, as far as with the Common Core testing, the style of the test, is it going to be more constructive response, so if we do have the upper level thinking, or is it going to be multiple choice?
It will be both. There will still be, of course, the multiple choice. What they're trying to do is construct questions with the multiple choice so that students do have to have some upper level thinking, some processing going on. But there's also going to be added back in that performance assessment where it may be that group work where they work with 5 or 6 students and then submit their work together. So that's a big change from what we have now. So I feel like here in Aurora we're doing a nice job of helping make that transition with the way that we're doing standards-based. Students have an opportunity to work together. Students have an opportunity to show mastery on those standards. So I think that's a good transition for our students to be ready for the Common Core. Any other questions? Thank you. Mr. Mace is going to be talking to us now about reading.
I'm going to be talking a little bit about what we are as a district are doing with our reading, why reading matters to us in the district. And we'll we'll start with our reading first. 2004, we applied for and got and received the Reading First grant. It was a federal grant where we received a pretty substantial amount of money. And what that looked like for us was a lot of whole group reading instruction. And speaking from the elementary perspective, what that means is our kids in the classroom were getting a one-size-fits-all, so to speak, approach to reading instruction. What we found was we missed the boat with that. We missed some of the kids who excelled in reading. We didn't push them on to greater heights. And we missed some kids who struggled with reading because we didn't get them the support where they need and bring them up. What we've done as a district, we've adopted the Missouri Reading Initiative. Research shows that has been effective to work for kids. And the general principle is we're going to guided reading groups. And what that means, we're teaching a kid, we're taking a kid where they're at, and we're bringing them up. Or if they're above grade level, we're taking those kids and we're pushing them to new heights. We're We're doing that in small group instruction. We have a 15-minute mini lesson where we're chunking our instruction, and then we break into groups, and we put kids into groups to work together. Like Dr. Moreland talked about, we're getting them to work together on different things, making them collaborate, having them come to group consensus, because as the video showed, that's where our kids are going. We're going to collaborative work settings. We're going to technology settings. And we believe that that reading instruction in that method pushes kids into that and helps them become better reading achievers. So we're working on that. The high school reading course changes. Dr. Moreland, I don't know if you're going to talk about
We
that.
started the high school reading course 4 or 5 years ago. So it's kind of always been a transition where we began the course. Eventually, what we wanted to do was phase it out so that the other core areas, or even the other areas period, could pick up some of the readings, help our students pick up some of the reading skills they needed in order to be successful in their classrooms. So we're kind of in that transition now. Basically what we've done is required all of our incoming freshmen to take at least one semester of reading. Those students who are able to pass a proficiency exam at the end of the first semester, then we're able to select another class for second semester. Those that didn't stayed in the reading course for another year. And so we're kind of evolving from going that specific to let's see how we can spread those skills out so that all of our teachers can help our students. Our science teachers can work with our students on how to read a science, the technical reading that goes on in science. The same thing with social studies. So we're in that transition. Mr. Colton, would you care to address? You wouldn't care to address that. Okay. So anyways, that's where we are with making that transition on taking it away from a full year course for some students and just really concentrating on those students that need to hone in on those reading skills.
Another thing that MRI does is connect reading with writing. What we found, nonfiction writing. If a student can write nonfiction work, typically they're a good reader. And that connection with our good readers, good writers, that's not always the case. We found several kids this year as we have given the DRA2, kids who are on or above grade level readers who can't write at all. And what MRI allows us to do is specifically work during our writer's workshop time, our writing intervention time, that we work with those kids on what a good writing piece looks like. We show anchor charts, anchor papers. What does a good writing piece look like? Our goal is to have every kid, when we leave the elementary setting, ready for junior high, where there's more writing intensive work, where there's more higher level, more depth of knowledge in those kids, so they're ready for some of the more difficult specific coursework, specialized work that those kids get in junior high. So at the elementary school, in grades 3 and 4, we're really working this year, this is year 2 of our MRI, we're really working on that writing piece. We feel like we're working better towards the guided reading, but we're really trying to get our connections with writing and reading and having both good readers and good writers. The next thing I'll talk about, and we'll kind of wrap it up, and then I'll take some questions if we have any. We talked about ways as a faculty, how parents can help with our reading. I surveyed my staff, and I surveyed some other people in the community, ways that our parents can help at home with this transition to MRI. First of all, have your kids read at home. I know that sounds simple, but at certain times, you got to be able to say, hey, let's turn the TV off, let's sit down and let's talk about this book. And then ask your kids questions on what they're reading. Ask them not just who the main characters were, but go in depth with what was the plot, what was some conflict and resolutions that we had. As we go to the Common Core Standards, we're finding that our kids have to have a deeper knowledge of being able to draw those conclusions. Why did characters do what they do? What were they thinking? What actions in the story led them to do the choices that they made? Those kinds of questions you can ask at home. And then also, good readers need models at home. Whether it's reading the newspaper, reading the back of the cereal box, reading a novel, reading whatever. Show kids that it's important to read at home. It's important to you. It's important to society for our kids to be better readers. And that's what we're asking our parents to do at home for us. Any questions for me? Any more out? Yes, ma'am.
When you say having parents stuff at home, are you providing workshops to, because there are some parents that don't know the literary elements when you're talking about plot.
That's
they have no
true.
idea what you're reading reference.
We are, in our parent-teacher conferences, we are having staff talk a little bit about ways that they can help and asking some of those questions. Some of those questions for us. What are some ways, or what are some questions that you can ask at home that take a short period of time? So when our parent-teacher conference is coming up, we are going to address that issue, ways that parents can help us.
Another aspect of the reading piece is moving away from so much fiction reading and writing to the nonfiction, because when you think of our students going into the world of work, how often do we use fiction pieces in our jobs? You know, I mean, I do that for my own enjoyment. I don't ever do that for, you know, for my position. So, you know, understanding how to read for information, how to follow multi-step directions, those type of things, those technical reading, how to take the information, process it so that I can solve a problem. Those are the skills that we're really trying to hone on, especially at the secondary level. Do we have any other questions? I'd like to thank you for attending our part of the presentation. Mr. Decker is going to come forward so that if you have any questions on anything that's going on the district-wide level, we want you to ask him, and he'll be able to provide you with that information.
Any questions you might have about things that are going on in the district?
The survey that was on the website, do you have any results from that yet?
We did. We put out a survey. We had to do our facilities plan, and we did do the survey. It was kind of interesting. We had 100 people that responded, which the last time they did a survey, they did it during town hall meetings, and had, I think, 60 people respond. We had at least 100 people respond to the survey. The largest percentage responded they would like to see classrooms at the junior high to join the main building and the C building. The second grouping was athletic facilities, then the auditorium, and then multi-purpose facility at Robinson. You know, really, it just gives us an idea of, you know, where that snapshot of the community is with planning right now. It'll also give us an opportunity to talk to people during the town hall meetings to find out, you know, maybe a little bit more. Be able to have those results from that survey to show people and get that feedback. Ultimately, right now as a district, you know, we're not going to be able to do any of it without a tax increase bond, which during the time that's not real feasible. So, but it does give us kind of an idea of, you know, again, it's just a snapshot, because when you got a community of 7,000 people and you have 100 respond, it's just a snapshot. But it'll give us at least give us a place to start talking point wise.
I was wanting to know where we're standing on budget cuts.
We cut 2 years ago. We cut 1.4 million out with the intent that we would not cut again. And this year, with budget, with the cuts that we made, plus people were diligent, faculty and staff were diligent with money spent. We came out ahead of where we were projected to be, and I don't see us having to do that again. So I think we did it once, and we did it right, and so we're going to be able to have some stability, unless the state just decides they're not going to provide us with anything. You know, then we'd have to go back. But there are districts who cut small amounts, and they've had to cut every year because the money's not getting any better. But I think, you know, in the beginning, when we made all those cuts, it was tough, and a lot of people thought it was too much. But it's proven to be, you know, we've been able to stand true to what we not have to cut again and to be able to look at giving raises and doing some of the things that we need to do to take care of the people we have. Anything else? Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it.